This conference will now be recorded.
That's right. All right. 25 seconds late. Don't let it happen. All right, we're going to call the meeting to order. Please note the members present, and although he's physically not in the room, we'll put Councilor Perry down as attending.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Any negative? Motion to approve the agenda passes 3-0. Okay, we're here to talk to the police department, the fire department, the dispatch, and emergency management operations. So, Chief, we'll let you get started.
Rules of engagement here, sir, just to,
Yeah.
all right, I'm ready.
Keep your seat.
First of all, I'd like to shorten up the job description for chief. This is the Roswell chief. I'm here to build relationships, develop staff, respond to community needs, and plan for the future. Pretty much covers it in a nutshell. Currently, we have 20 civilian positions full. We have 94 sworn that we're budgeted for. We have 7 vacancies. The long-term goal would be to get to 125 officers. That is substantiated by, over the past 8 years, we've done a formula to see what you need based on call volume. And that formula includes total officers, total hours, total shifts, and the fact that you have the officers' time broken up into 33% allotments, obligated time, unobligated time, administrative time. And you need your unobligated time to be at 33% too, which allows the officer to do things self-initiated to move past. And then overall call volume and total time spent on calls average. So another thing I'm trying to be quick. I have a lot of material to cover. I don't want to wear anybody out. My goals for this agency, naturally crime reduction, which is going to be a strong focus on drugs, which we are doing daily. Every time we get an opportunity, we have our drug dogs, we have drones, we have license plate readers. Anytime we get an opportunity to use grant funding to advance our cause, we're on it. Want to get to 125 mannings, and that's to cover the call volume that we currently have. One of my dreams here, and we're looking at software on the, what is it called? The Square, Central Square software. And also we're going to investigate whether the new Axon cameras that we have can interlock into cameras on Main Street and give us closed caption TV and the ability to videotape. It's one of my dreams. We're looking at software that can do that. The community is very much interested in that. Neighborhood Watch has a business watch included out of the 30 that they have, which is another relationship policing. RPD Satellite Academy. Last Thursday, I went up to the New Mexico Law Enforcement Board. We've been waiting patiently for 1 year and 3 months. We applied 1 year and 3 months ago. What I want is I want oversight over our recruits. I want to run a Cert by Waiver Academy, which is your experienced officers. I want to run the Telecommunications Academy. We need 20 per year to maintain accreditation. We supply all the instructors to Santa Fe. So I want the academy here, and this was a big jump. We're reinitiating one that was here in the 80s, and I don't know why it stopped. But anyways, we've got to go on it. We have the facilities, Eastern New Mexico. Dr. Sean Powell said we've got the facilities for the classrooms. We have the racetracks, either Mystic or Fletzy. We've already spoken to them ahead of time. We have the ranges. They actually have a requirement for a virtual range, which we have. We got that during COVID with COVID money. So it's a virtual range set up in the basement with 972 scenarios, but that was one of the requirements. Anyways, we have everything. We're ready to go. We're just waiting for the accredited curriculum and what steps they want us to take. If we don't know the step, we want to make sure we're in step. ICIP want list. I have an ICIP want list. I'm going to hit that afterwards. We're pursuing national accreditation right now, CALIA. There's only 3 agencies in the state that have it. We will be number 4. It's usually a 3 to 5 year period. We're a little ahead of what we should be, but we need a couple of things to fall in place as far as proofs and policies have already been updated. So we could a year from now be CALIA accredited, which is outstanding. It's a heck of a feather in our caps.
Could you tell me again what that stands for?
That is Commission for Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies, CALIA. That was a test question on sergeant's test back in 97. Also, I want an airport division. I want to, when we expand our manning, of course, patrol is our primary. But as you know, we have details right now, 3 people a day for 3 hours a shot at the airport. And I think we should have law enforcement at that airport working with TSA. That is one of my goals as well. Now, my little wish list, ICIP, we would like the building we're in to be rehabbed. The West 2nd Street building we're currently going to make it into an enclosure to take evidence. The House Bill 560 set us back a couple of years ago. And that's in process right now. What I mentioned before was the reporter software, which is Central Square, which is an upgrade from what we're doing. And it also, we were sold on it that it can be connected to or have the capabilities to connect to cameras on Main Street, which is pretty important to me. If we can put cameras on the street, I think we can cut down a lot of number one crimes, and we can also get more eyes and ears without having to put the bodies out there. Central Square mobile command unit. I've been asking for that for a couple of years. It's an expensive item. The one we have now is almost 30 years old and sometimes doesn't start. So, and it was a converted RV. So anyways, we're looking at that too. We're seeking grant funding for that. 13 new vehicles I put on for my request too. We have to stay with the cycle with the new vehicles to replenish the fleet. Obviously, everyone in the room here knows if the fleet gets too old, maintenance starts to overtake cost of renewal. And we're looking at a transport vehicle. We're looking at drone that has drone capabilities and transport prisoners. We're looking at that as well. We're looking at grant funding. So I got one thing that I have that I want to put out to the board right here is towards the end of this year's budget, we had our HVAC system evaluated by Justin, and we have a $116,000 repair for that system. And he did a second bid and it came around the same price, but we don't have that. So we have that on our ICIP wish list as well. Some things I just want to throw out there. Our drugs are a problem. The illicit drugs in the community are the root of all evil in the city of Roswell. And it is coming from Mexico. And we're dealing with it. We have to deal with it, but that is the problem. Talk of gangs, you have unassociated gangs is the best way I can put it. They still claim to be North Siders, East Siders, whatever, but they're not in that location and they're not organized. But the baloney that they pull, they tie it to being part of a gang membership. So everyone is on an understanding of that.
Chief, one thing I will say, some good news for you. Now that marijuana is legal and stuff, they're going to be buying it at the stores. Drugs won't be an issue anymore.
Well, it'll be a different
I
issue.
hope you heard the sarcasm from my voice.
But it'll be a different issue.
I didn't.
Let me clarify it then.
Please do. I don't think fentanyl's going off the street.
Oh, you're right.
We stopped talking about it.
I know.
I'm talking about fentanyl. I'm talking about heroin. I'm talking about everything that somebody can stick in their face to get high. We're putting 2 SROs in July back in the schools. And actually I had a phone call yesterday. They have armed security at the schools. I guess that's going to go through the board. They've already got them started up. And we're going to have an active relationship with them as well, which hopefully will help bridge the gap. I like to have more officers in the school as a liaison. Another interesting thing, if you look at our organizational chart, SROs have always been considered uniform services, but we don't. We put them into detectives because the nature of what they run into in the schools, we find it's more conducive to have them writing investigations. Some cool things that are going on. The Neighborhood Watch is at 30 neighborhoods, and it's an outstanding program. I've never seen it here more than 3. We have the drones, the LPRs, our task force is completely active and really, they just got a press release and they're the busiest in the area per capita, the 5th district. Our virtual range, body worn cameras. I'll take questions.
Questions?
On the Satellite Academy, I know we spoke before on it. We were looking at dates so that we wouldn't be doubling up dates that have already been at the Hobbs Academy. And so
Great question.
What time of year are we looking at?
When I went up to, well, the academies now around the state, and there's 7 of them. Yeah, it's 7, including the state. They start in January and July. I plan to run our academy offset of that. So therefore, if somebody sprains an ankle, somebody gets the flu, whatever, we're available to it. But it also allows us, if one of ours has trouble, we can shift them to the next one. I'd rather have more availability to the academies and not have to wait and have somebody sitting. I think the benefit to having the academy here in Roswell is immeasurable right now. I mean, just from the outset, it's not going to impact our budget to begin with. We have had a 5th lieutenant who's in charge of special tasks. Right now, he handles accreditation and grants. So not that he's going to be the actual lieutenant, but I have 5 lieutenants. So 1 is devoted to running this academy. And I also have the clerical people right now. Now, in the future, we've been gifted 5 new positions, which is fantastic. And with that, we would like to, in the long haul, eventually expand our civilian force too, to eventually, once we get up and going, maybe have 2 administrative personnel assigned to that academy along with that lieutenant. We have the trainers here. And the only thing we may have to subcontract out would be a driving instructor. But that's out of that 16-week academy, we can cover everything else right here. And I don't plan on depriving Santa Fe of using our instructors. First of all, it's good training for us and it's good practice. And we keep a great relationship with that group so they can facilitate us. But yeah, that's where we're at on that.
So offset, they're July, January, maybe August, March.
I would run it probably a little later than that. And it's like they'd overlap. They're going to overlap, but I would say with the start date is where you have breathing room. So I haven't gone into that yet, but I told them up there on Thursday, my idea is to offset the 2 current starting dates. So there'll be more available training for everybody.
Anything else?
Just a couple of things just to sort of, because no one else is going to brag on you. As far as the public or anything, nobody knows or, everybody just, a lot of times will say, when something bad goes on, we always want to talk about it. But I really appreciate seeing what has really transformed over the years with our police department. And I appreciate the fact that you're focused on what's happening, what's going on, but you've also got a vision for the future. And I don't know, and I'm not speaking ill of anyone else we've ever had before, but I don't know that we've always had that we have a focus. There have been times where it's, well, this is what we have. So we just, move forward with what we have. If you don't have a vision, the Bible says where there's no vision, the people perish. And so Chief, I'm just very appreciative of, that's not only a feather in your hat, but those who work under you, that there's a passion in that department to take care of things in Roswell and to get ourselves to a place to be better. So I appreciate that. And I want to say about the academy as well, that's a big thing. And I know we got a newspaper here and I know eventually there might be, I don't know, something written about this because this is a huge thing. And it's not the easiest thing in the world to get something like this approved with the state. And you've been working on this for a long time and you didn't give up on it. And I think it's a great thing for our community.
Thank you, Counselor. And I'm only as good as the people in the building. They do most of the work. The application was 21 pages long and it outlines budget. It goes through where our resources are going to be, our connections, our stakeholders. But I don't want to belabor that. That is going to be a great thing. And what did really catalyst my interest in that was what happened to us at COVID. In COVID, they kept our troops up. The municipal academy took 5 weeks off for COVID with the state police in the same building took a week. But because of that 5 weeks off, then they run into the timeframes and they wanted to keep our people up there for 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. And there's overtime commitments there and there's families that they belong to that they can't see. And it really set me on fire saying, I don't want them controlling the action anymore, especially when we're supplying the trainers. So.
And I don't know. This is not my business as far as my education, but I would think having the local gives us a greater opportunity or a greater chance of not only recruiting, but getting closer to 100% completion I think part of, I know when my boys were in the academy up there, there were several, not officers, not necessarily from our department, but others that just dropped out just because they'd never been away from home or type thing, or they'd never been in a situation where they were bunked like that. And it was just a different kind of situation. And if we're able to have a better control over what we have, I think there's a better opportunity to give that correct training and get them where they need to be.
I think the other thing is training for other departments. Not that we're wanting to steal their officers, but once their officers get up here and see what we have and what we're doing, it looks like we have more opportunity for laterals too. When they get back to their department and they're unhappy, they know people in the.
The other thing is we work with all the surrounding agencies. It only is going to be a benefit to us that we're going to be trained under the same roof. So it stands to reason. We all have the same mission. So and I look forward to it. I mean, and I've had 2 chiefs call me up and say, you really need that, huh? With you down there, all that work you're doing already, but I think it's going to be good work. So.
Well, and our people won't have to go up there.
Yeah.
They can go home and stay with their family. So we don't have to pay for meals and overtime and all that. I think it's a savings and lots of things. And it's a better department.
Mr. Chairman, I don't work for the Roswell Daily Record, but I will say this. This is a finance meeting, so I would like to know what some of these things are needing to be done to the building, because that's going to deal with finance. I mean, if we're here to be educated, I want to get the education. So I'm sorry for the questions, but we'll have a meeting. I want to go.
You're entitled, but I'm going to give Councilman Hildebrand a moment. Everybody's had a swing at the ball with me and him, so.
Well, I want to talk about budgets, what I want to talk
Yeah,
about.
that's what I was getting to.
That's what we're here for.
Yes, sir.
So that's what we're going to talk about. If I got to ask you a couple of questions.
Absolutely.
Looking at the budget in per se, that I know you've had difficulty in acquiring new officers. And I see you only have like $5,000 in your budget for, I think it says recruitment. I can't remember. Yeah, recruit expense. What is that? $5,200. I'm asking, I guess, is your budget adequate? And is it adequate in other areas as well?
I would always appreciate more money for recruiting. We seem to have, we do well with it because what we're looking at right now is new signs, but the signs, they last a long time. But yes, we survive a lot on our calls and our advertising online, but we could always use more money for recruiting. Absolutely. More we can get out there, billboards, anything like that. It's awfully pricey. I mean.
Right, but what other avenues? I don't know whether you do the recruiting, is HR doing recruit? Who's doing your recruiting for you?
We have our support division does the recruiting. There's a lieutenant assigned to that, 2 sergeants. One of the sergeants handles neighborhood watch as well.
Right.
We've been doing a lot of home cooking, which has served us much better.
Sure.
First of all, the agency has the appropriate number of female employees. We're at 10%. And the makeup of the agency reflects the community. We're at 60% Hispanic. And then we have a mixture after that.
Right.
A lot of our recruiting is home cooking coming from this community. And the reason why we went that route is because they stick. They stick. When we target a poor economy somewhere else in the country, they stay for a while, they get trained, and then they leave.
Yeah.
So the recruiting budget, we don't get pounded. Of course, I'd always take more money. Absolutely. But we don't get pounded as much. And the reason why it stayed stable at that number is because of all the home cooking, because we're right here. We represent every one of the officers out on the street is an advertisement for the Roswell Police Department. So.
Correct. And, I'm not here to just say, here's more money. I want effective spending of it. And if you had a request that was going to be for effective spending of recruitment money, let's put it on the table. You can't always measure advertising.
Right.
No one can measure advertising, but if you don't do it, you can measure that you didn't get anything. So what's the effective use of those dollars? So I'm asking you to look at, is there additional requests that you think that would help you, because you're 7 down and we put 5 more for you. How can we get that void filled through effective recruiting for you? and how that works.
Yeah, the online with today's generation is the best way to attract them.
Right.
I think the other thing that's attractive here, I think, is how and I'm not trying to blow smoke, but it's the way the community treats the police department here, especially this day and age, the national climate. This is attractive here. We're very well supported.
Right.
But if I had my druthers, I would want billboards. That's what I would want. And going out of town, coming into town, people that visited here knew we were looking for it. We have the signs up and we do that, and we do the job fairs. We participate in all that stuff, and that's a lot of travel budget too, but we actually put people and faces out there.
Right.
But if I wanted more, I'd want more billboards. I'd want a fixed sign up there advertising for the Roswell Police Department.
Yeah.
So that would be my pick. The rest is done online mostly. So.
Right. Okay, I think that's noted, that we'll take a look at that, and see what your request is before we finalize the budget.
Thank you.
Yeah. What other additional items that would you, I mean, your budget's up on personnel. I don't look at that side of it. Personnel is what personnel is, but I believe we're 2.1 and going to 2.5.
Part of that is going to be the shift in insurance. So they really aren't up their budget.
Basically the same budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically the same budget with the exception of how I reallocated insurance expense.
Yeah, I see you really nailed the general liability policy.
Yep.
So,
Because of the change in law, necessitated a lot of that,
yeah,
state law.
Well, and we increased the coverage for the civil rights issues. Just in anticipation of what's going on, nationwide. Anyway.
It's going to be an interesting.
that's a bad thing.
There's two ways to look at it. Because I've talked to the New Mexico Municipal League, the attorney involved, and what I thought it was at first, when I first looked at it, I thought of that as a free-for-all for attorneys just to lock out a civil suit, because everyone had an incident, if it's a use of force incident, there's a $2 million shot at each one that's there. But what he said was, he goes, it's capped. He was never capped before. No matter what they do. But I mean, if you have four of them there at a scene and one guy goes bad on you, it could be, it'll cripple. We're a blue collar community. We don't do well with that. A smaller community, it may vaporize them. But that's the only thing they had to say about it is it actually puts a cap on it where there wasn't a cap on civil liability before.
How'd they get that from the lawyers? What other items would you feel that would be some effective spending in your efforts here?
I would.
Any more training?
I wrote training and travel for training. We pirate other lines to make sure, but what I've always asked for, and the problem is none of them are cheap. I've never asked for myself because I paid for my own education, but my troops, I believe in command training. I believe in leadership training. I think it stems a lot of your liability when you have the proper oversight and your people are trained.
Right.
I think it keeps them interested in the job too when they see the new techniques and everything else. We currently are advocates to the FBI Leader Program. There's a command leadership program out of Oklahoma that's completely online with a residency. We tapped into that, and if we buy into it early, we save $800, but it's like $4,000. They eat it up quick. On the other note, I have to make sure all my mandated training is covered for my troops because staff is 8 people, whereas my troops they're the bread and butter and they're on the street. And I want to make sure their training isn't just about training; it's also about keeping them alive and focused and interested. There's a lot of things involved. So I would always like to have more of a training budget, more of a travel budget. But again, I understand there's only so many marbles in the bag.
Right.
So and sometimes we have vehicles that we're trying to catch up, recycle into the vehicles. The building and I'd really like to see the building. I think it'd be great for morale. I don't think we need to buy a new building. My opinion is I'd love to rehab the one we have and add 15 years of life to it. That's what I'd like to do. I'd like to start with freshening the inside of the building, more current colors, get the old paneling out of there and so forth and make that look for morale. And then I'd like to go after the outside of the building. And the thing is, with the use of West 2nd Street, we're going to open up some more parking, that's always been a headache over there, but we can alleviate some of that by moving the bigger vehicles over to the West 2nd location. So, a lot of these things we're in play on and we're practical. we do what we have to do. And, but if there are some things, some luxuries that I would like to have, and it's really not a luxury if you against liability is training, travel, some of those billboards for advertising. Keep in mind, right before COVID hit, we were full. We were right there, and then we've had to freeze for 2 years, and you kind of lose your step.
Right.
So, but yeah, those would be the things I'd be interested in. And I mean, if the board is open to it,
Well, I think it's open for suggestion because that's part of one of the responsibilities that we have to the community is the health, welfare, and safety of individuals. And everything else falls in line after that. And so I'm not opposed to seeing what your wish list looks like. And if it fits in by the time we get to final, that we can look at these things and move in that direction. That's my feeling wholeheartedly.
excellent. Thank you.
No further question there.
Okay,
Sure.
my turn. Okay, couple of things. Thank you all.
Let me have one more question. I do have a question on the overall budget. I don't know what price did you factored fuel costs in for all the vehicles in this community that the city owns? But we better double that number.
Oh, no, no.
We better double it.
Well, and I believe police is the only one that actually did
It's
an
only a
increase.
25% increase, right?
Yeah, it wasn't much.
Better double it from.
And we didn't catch it on maps.
Yeah,
The timing of it is what.
because it's not going to get any better.
Yeah.
So we better recognize that we're going to have in all departments, whatever their fuel costs are or were, we better double those, to protect ourselves. And hopefully that'll give us enough protection. I don't know.
Well, who knows?
I won't make a political comment about it.
Okay, thank you all for showing up. And we're going to do this with everybody. We had a short time to get a preliminary budget put together, and we spent most of our time with those things that are already encumbered and over the revenue side. So now we're getting into the operational side. You all get to participate in the first guinea pig experiment, I guess. But anyway, Chief, you mentioned a couple of times grants. Do you have a grant writer in your department?
We grants, our accreditation is also our grant seeking department. So that includes a lieutenant and clerical. Loretta Juarez is in there. So we do focus on hunting grants year round.
Okay.
What we normally get, do you want me to go on?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if you wanted to go at me piece by
I'm
piece.
concerned about grants because there's a lot of money out there right now. And I'm not sure if we're adequately staffed in the grant department to get.
Currently, we have a body worn camera grant out for 200,000 we applied for. I'm not saying we've got it, but we've got that one out there. We have an SRO grant out for 93,000. And there's another COVID grant coming, which we can get up to 80,000. Normally, we get a law enforcement grant, which is based on your amount of sworn personnel. We're expecting 119,000 in the beginning of this year coming up. JAG grants we get 20 to 25,000. And HIDA gets 270,000. It used to be 140 until House Bill 560 came in and we were responsible for disposing of all property and we couldn't keep the vehicles and And the lodges, I think, is about 16,000, whatever the percentage is. Those are our consistent grants, but we can't bank on those. But those are the things. And then we just got our SWAT team to level 3, the 3 tier. So it allows us to piggyback on emergency management for grants, and that's where we're out hunting for a command vehicle. I don't know if Brad grabbed you about the other vehicles too, the paddy wagon type of thing, but yeah, so we're constantly looking for that. That's been life since I've been here. That's life, and it is everywhere. The COVID was we got a lot of good toys with the COVID money. The last round, that's where we got the virtual range, the license plate readers. By the way, the license plate readers, the company has fallen flat on its feet. So we're going to try and connect to HIDA and use we already own, what are those things called that hold the material, not the receiver, for the cloud.
Oh, the database,
It is storage. I'm having a senior moment.
I'm having it.
We own our own.
Everybody's having one.
Cloud storage. I can't think of the name of the thing that we have, but it's like we get terabytes of storage. Anyways, we're going to try and go in with HIDA for a national database, and we'll store through what we already have through our body worn cameras. So we're always doing that stuff, mixing and moving and servers. Yes, that's the word I'm looking for, server. So
Okay. So a while back, a couple of years ago, long before I got to sit on the city council, you all had a problem with your heating and air conditioning, correct?
correct.
So tell me what happened? How come we're back? I mean, what, did we not fix, we just repaired it or did we replace it or?
The biggest thing we don't need a roof. We've had the roof done over a couple times. The problem with the HVAC system in our building is the original plumbing for it or piping for it with the exhaust fans, intakes, whatever you call them, whatever. They were designed before a lot of additions were made inside the building. So you have certain rooms that it's like a cryo chamber where you're not going to age anymore. You're frozen solid. And then you have other rooms where there's nothing and you got people running their own little air conditioners in the room. Now, what we're running into now, Justin is a specialist in this stuff and he's been fantastic just to be able to identify the problems, which I guess was difficult before. But we have old thermostats that weren't activated and weren't doing what they're supposed to do. And that was making equipment work harder than it should have in certain areas. So one thing pounded on the other, along with it being older equipment. So that's what this repair that he recommended to fix our HVAC was $116,000. Nothing's cheap on a commercial level either. But that's that and chasing bats. But
How close is that $116,000? If I said, go do it today, would that be the price that I have to write the check for?
this is a recent assessment.
It's a recent.
Yeah, it's a recent
In
quote.
the last 3 weeks.
As soon as we got him on board, that guy is like a member of the RPD. He's been in our building.
So it's what we're gonna, so I'm not sure that I understood the answer to my question was when they did whatever repair they did back when,
Mhm.
the last 3 years, I suspect, did they just patch or did they?
I think he just got it up and running and never changed because this is the issue. And Justin has said that because it's overpowering in one area, that and the thermostat's not operating, it's causing more problems. I think the last fix was getting them up and going and
Okay,
obviously bridge the gap.
okay. So this 116, is it a patch job or is this gonna?
He said he's going to make it right the way it should be. So he's probably going to change registers where they are and everything else. He said he can do it. He said it's doable. The equipment's still running that's there. But it's obviously the machine they're overworking.
Okay, are you on a water cooled?
Is that a boiler system?
Yes.
DC?
Yes, it is.
It's an old boiler system. You actually, this thing has, there's 2 of them, correct?
And if I can step in for a second, Justin has identified that the system that they put in years ago was ahead of its time. It was just the components at the time were not available to take it to the next step. So he has come in and he has evaluated the entire system and identified that with new components, new thermostats, new dampeners, new switchovers, that they can actually get it to where it's functional the way it's intended to be. And that's for the $116,000 count. So the new companies that he's reaching out to have the capabilities of working with these older machines. They were somewhat ahead of their time at the time. And so these components are able to match up with what we have versus replacing an entire unit. We would be looking at millions on doing that. So I think the 116,000 is an escape, financially. I mean, it's a lot of money, but for what we would be looking at a replacement, it's minimal. And by our direction through Justin is he's identified through the company that he's had come in and survey this equipment. They said that they have done this numerous times with all over the country and that they're fully equipped to do this and get it up and operating properly.
Well, just word of caution, because I know the county's going through some real problems right across the street here with and that was all new stuff put in just 10 years ago, or whatever it was. And I know that the administrative center is getting, I believe, getting new boilers. And so this stuff just lasts so long. And I hate to spend 116 now
And have to replace it.
and then come in here and asking for 250, 300,000, and all that 116 may or may not tie in with the new stuff. I mean,
And of course, we're at the mercy of professionals in this industry. We're not. So
I understand.
we have to lean on their direction and their wisdom saying, yes, we've done this multitude of times, got it operating properly. And that's our end result, is trying to function.
No, I hear what you're saying. I'm just cautious because I hate to spend 116 now, and then 2 years from now, you guys log in and say, well, the boiler blew up. And now we're out a couple of $1 million. And it doesn't, and once that starts, start over here thinking this is the problem, and then the one next to it goes out, then everything else starts falling apart. I've seen it happen too many times, so just word of caution. That's all.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
The other question I have is, at one point, over the last 12 months, we were looking at moving the police department and finding two places and splitting it and leasing, having a north section and a south section. Are we still looking at that? Or are we?
We've kind of given up on that. It was an idea, a thought. And we can't find two locations that are sufficient. Myself, the deputy chief have went through multiple facilities and locations, and we just can't find two perfectly located facilities where you could have a north station and south station.
Okay. And have we given up looking for a whole new, just one single unit? Or what I'm just saying is, we put 116,000 into the building and then another building comes open. Because I know we had looked at where Ashley's is now, we had looked at purchasing that before Ashley's bought it, the old Sears building, and putting our police department.
If I may respond, I don't want to walk over anybody, but a couple of years ago, we went over looking at a public safety facility, very expensive nowadays, like crippling. We've looked at the option of moving into a building and having them rehab it, and then they're going to lease it to us. Sure, they're going to make it any way we want. They're going to fix it. So we're looking at 40-year-old buildings, 30-year-old buildings, and having them rehab it. I'll just fix one we own outright. And that is a beautiful building. The bones on it are beautiful. I say if we rehab that thing, save the taxpayer a ton of money, make it look good, and add 15 years of life to it, I think that, and then I'll be long gone, and then you guys can go after a new building. But I just think practicality wise, I think that building, its location, the current financial climate, I think that we're better off rehabbing that, doing it right. I think it's better to do it right, fix that building, add 15, 20 years to its lifespan and move on from there. Build the morale with the troops, redo the inside of it, redo the outside of it, make sure the AC system works. It has everything. I think at 125 people, which we have, I think it's 150 if we move up on the civilians as well. I don't think we'd still outgrow that building. So the size of it there's a lot of pluses to going that route. And I don't think we'll outgrow it. It's even with 150 people in that building, we'll still be fine.
You'd have an adequate parking.
Yes, because we're going to move most of our tactical equipment to West Second.
No, I was just saying currently.
Yeah.
To answer your question now, currently, no. But once we move to the West Second, we will open up. That has been one of the biggest fights that we've had as far as margin. Because it is the platform of footprint of the building on that specific lot eats up 3/4 of the land versus the parking. And so, but once we initiate the availability on the West Second lot, we'll be able to remove a lot of our larger items, SWAT items, and we'll be able to remove a lot of the evidence cage items. So it will open up quite a bit more parking at that point. It'll be more of these.
These things have changed if we do the new building. I mean, I've walked around it. I mean, the back, we have an area where you can put evidence under a overhang. That would be removed to West Second. How that area opens up. I would like to redo the Sally Port, to put cars through. One of them currently is used to house a generator. If we redo this thing, we got some outrageous numbers on a generator when they're far more reachable than the numbers we got from a previous person who was in the position. And the other thing is some of them are available through grants. But I mean, there's things I would like to change to make it, before we leave, but still this project doesn't look anywhere near paying somebody to fix a building and have us charged every month to be in the same situation that we could be for free. I just think it's a better investment, my personal opinion.
Any known structural problems with that building?
Not structural that I know of. The one thing that I would just encourage the chief, make sure that generator stuff is on the ICIP and we start building it out for the next year. You want to make sure that that's included, if not already, because I know that's a World War II generator.
What I had figured, Mike, was that we would roll that into when we rehab the building, because it'd be part of fixed to the building, but just wrote it in now. Submit that.
To answer your question, so not that I'm aware of. I was there for 6 months. My office was there. I think you repaired the sewer lines. That was repaired. So that was a big, not structural, but infrastructure part of the building. That was the
Well,
need.
that was the next question.
Yeah. Infrastructure.
We're going to go down this path of remodeling that building, and that's what you're talking about. And it's another one of those deals, we spend several $1 million, and then the next day you drive by there and the wall falls down. They would not bode well.
Yeah.
Do we have anybody on staff? I know we don't have a structural engineer, but somebody that is partly qualified to go look at that and really dig around and see, make sure we don't have any.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We could have a building official run through there because that's what he does. He could go through it and look at it, but see if he could identify any structural issues
Or infrastructure, so that's all, of course, all the infrastructure probably get moved. But those are some of the questions that if we go down this path, that I'm gonna start asking. I think that just.
We have those people on staff, our electrical inspector, our building official. They could very simply walk through it and make do an evaluation on the building to bring it up to code.
Good. All right. Sounds good. Any other questions? The police chief. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Go to the other chief.
All righty.
So
I was going to start with basically explain, and so Janie won't get on to me. Our total roster is 94.5. The half comes from one of our admin assistants. Basically, she's our admin assistant senior, but then she's also helps on a kind of part-time basis with the emergency management deal. So her salary kind of gets broken up a little bit. So out of the 95, we're talking about right at 84, what we call uniform troops. That's the actual certified firemen that can cover the trucks and the calls. When we're fully staffed, we run 28 people per shift. There's 3 shifts. The minimum number we can run a shift with is 24. So basically, the way that breaks down with the 24 that we have to have, the extras are we try to keep 1 lieutenant, 2 drivers, and 1 firefighter extra. We refer to them as rovers. Basically, that's to backfill or fill in if somebody's sick or off. That gives us that many positions of cushion before we get into the overtime situation. Currently, total throughout the department, we've got 5 vacant positions. And the reason I kind of want to start out with this is because one of the biggest concerns coming into this year, and forgive me for not handing you these, because I wrote down in these. We are looking at the potential for a whole lot of potential vacancies. Would you like one? We've got there, basically 20 years ago, fire department was in this situation and there were two big classes that got hired on. In fact, I happen to be one of them. So all of those people are currently eligible or going to be eligible, within this, by the end of the year, first and next. So that's going to be, when you were talking about recruiting, that's what made me think of that.
Yeah.
That's something we've really been looking at and scared of. My biggest concern with the recruiting, the hardest part about it is 20 years ago when I started, there was 200 and something people that showed up to compete against me at the test. The last few years, and there was 10 spots when I hired on. So competition was tough. Nowadays, in recent years, if we get 20 applications, we consider that a good run. If 12 of those applicants actually show up to take the test, we call that a good run too. And the scary part about it, it's in here, the breakdown of, how many that we lose throughout our recruit academy. And then how many we may lose by the time within their first year, even the ones that are actually able to get through the certification processes and all that stuff. I can say having our own academy on Chief's behalf, it does help a lot. That's usually a pretty good chunk of our overtime because unfortunately with fire service, it's kind of its own unique monster. Nobody is able to do anything by themselves. So whatever training stuff we do, it takes a lot of extra guys to be able to oversee and conduct the big scenarios, and especially when it comes to live fire training and hazmat, certain stuff like that. On the good note, we are whittling away at some of our bigger item issues, not counting recruiting or not necessarily recruiting, but the potential for having to come back and fill a whole bunch of positions. COVID really hurt us, backed us up on our training. We have so much training every year that consists of every end of the fire service. A lot of it, thank goodness, we were luckier than most any department in the state. My training chief was able to pull off way more state training recertification classes than anybody else in the state. And we just got lucky. We wouldn't leave them alone. We kept bugging them and hounding them. And the other thing that helps us is because of our academy and the staff that we are able to have, the training level that we have basically our own in-house state instructors. Just about any class that the State Fire Academy, State Fire Marshal's office can put on, we have in-house people who are qualified and trained to teach the class. So then the only thing we have to do is, because it is a state class, they bring in a state fire marshal proctor to give the actual test at the end of the class. So that's helped us a lot. So that's something we were looking at going into this next year, is trying to catch up on some of that training that we're behind on. One of the big ones that's in this packet, I forget what he was called. It's the big paratech rope, the TEACS Tech Rescue Training. Basically, that's one that I kind of inherited that bit us a little bit. Through a grant, we were awarded a
Tech rescue trailer.
A tech rescue trailer that's full of all the equipment. One of the requirements, stipulations on that grant is we're required to have what they call a typed or certified rescue team. I'm not sure where, I'm not familiar with it, but somewhere at some point that fell through the cracks and we didn't get those set up. So we did try to work it into this next year's budget to send those guys to the TEACS class and get that right back so that we can meet that. Also, as far as the grants that you were talking about, Councilor Corn, this last year we got really lucky and fortunate. We were awarded basically half of what we asked for, but through the FEMA grant and the amount of roughly $450,000 to replace our air packs. And just like the fire trucks, the air packs, Mike, was that 4 years ago, just about every single fire department in the state went in together and got a really good deal and bought all new air packs. Well, we're at the point, the ones of those we have left they're wore out and done. Parts are obsolete. So we've slowly been buying one here, one there to keep that up. Now our goal is, and luckily with this grant, we're in the process of purchasing half of what we need. But, and that's my fear with that, which will be one of my biggest ICIP items, is now we're going to be in good shape. We're going to have enough to cover all of our frontline trucks. We won't have enough to cover the backup trucks, which is okay. My only concern that I worry about is the 2-packs and bottles are not compatible with each other. So on a real big fire scene where we're having to bring in callbacks and backup trucks, it scares me a little bit to think, and when we're in a hurry, guys are having to switch out bottles and stuff to keep the operations going. I don't want to run into any type of situation where we have guys that can't get something to work or they run out of bottles, whatever case that might be. The other big grant, and I'm hoping this is going to be a good thing. Ironically enough, 2 years in a row with the state fire grant, we were turned down. Last year, they tell me that doesn't happen very often, but I'm not sure. The kicker though is last year they actually cut it in half because of COVID, and it was only worth $300,000 towards a fire truck rather than the $6 million that it normally is. So I'm crossing my fingers that since we got turned down twice in a row, this year they'll go back to $6 million and we'll be able to add that to it too, which will be a great thing because the other side of this, fortunately in the back of this is the list of trucks that I put in there. Basically just to show, no, I didn't get that in there. I'm so sorry. I'll catch you all up on that. Anyway, I do have a sheet that I will provide to you guys that shows the age and the miles and the wear and tear on the current trucks that we have. So, but the good thing is it's never my favorite way to do anything, but we have a loan that is basically going to end and be paid up this year. So that's going to free up $181,000 of our state fire grant money. And that we have another grant, I believe it was for 5 years for heart monitors that we purchased because we had to upgrade all those too. But both of those loans will come to full term this year. So that money we're going to be able to roll into another loan. And we've been in the process. Mike's been helping me with that. We've been scrambling. We found 4 fire trucks that are going to be ready to go within 3 or 4 months, they tell us. So that's going to be a huge benefit to catching this up because our biggest headache the last 2 years has been maintenance and repair. And I'm glad I thought of that because that's the other thing we're working on today is the RFP for a maintenance and service contract. And that should help us huge on saving money because not only are we paying a lot of money to keep these poor old trucks running, but we're also having to pay travel fees and piggybacking off of a Taos contract to be able to get certified people here to work on. So both of those 2 things are going to be huge for us.
Mr. Chair, if I can just add, that will actually be coming to public safety on Monday, the purchase of those 4 additional trucks using fire fund money. And I will also bring it to the finance committee at y'all's next regular meeting for y'all's approval, then on to full city council.
Yeah, you shared that with me, Mike.
Yes, sir.
And I think you guys are going down that right path to get that done. It's really going to be no net increase. It should be. And it gets you on a cycle, correct?
Yes, and that's the other thing
cycle to replace equipment.
That's the other thing we're working on. And historically, we've been so lucky throughout the history of the Rawls Fire Department because when I hired on and even, roughly 20 years ago, 15 years ago, we were averaging about 4,000 to 4,500 calls a year. So a lot of these trucks that we're still running every day as backup trucks, but we're in them more often than not on a daily basis. Those trucks are just over 20 years old and they're still operating. The problem we have, it's just with the growth and the call volume nowadays is about right at about 10,000 calls a year. So we're just wearing them out quicker than we used to. That's why those 20-year-old trucks are still working because they were splitting 4,000 calls as compared to 10,000.
This is actually falling in, and I think fine because we're paying off those 2 loans. So that's freeing up that fire fund money. We don't have any debt at the fire department. After these 2 are paid off, the last 2 trucks we paid cash for the truck and Engine 6.
Engine 6.
Cash, so we don't have no debt on those. So we'll be able to enter into that, and then every 2 years, look at the replacement plan to where we add them and use the fire fund to do that. There'll also be one coming up, backing up just one step on the police department and body cameras, using a law enforcement grant for their new Axon body cameras. So there's two of them that are almost similar that will be coming through Public Safety Monday, and then your next finance meeting for your consideration.
Okay. Questions? Anybody has any questions for the fire chief?
You know, I know one of your basic increases is overtime. And unfortunately, behind the 8 ball on that, we've got 13 people that are going to leave. And how aggressive, again, like I was asking Chief Smith, can you be, that will help you get that void filled? Because, you know, at some point in time, you hope you get that filled, you can jump ahead and find a way to get that overtime, even a program that gets that overtime. Probably not popular with some of your staff, but get that overtime reduced on your overstaff or whatever it is. Because I talked to Mike about that a couple months ago or a month ago about how you could get on a program to see where you could to satisfy getting that overtime reduced. You got no choice this year. It looks like you're not going to get away from it at all. And that's one of your larger expenses that you have. And so.
Did we pull the number on the built-in overtime? I know.
Yes, I do. I have it.
Okay.
So does everybody understand the built-in overtime?
Mike explained it.
Okay. So it's really, as far as the built-in overtime, it comes up to, and that basically I just kind of averaged, I took each rank's position towards the middle of the steps. It comes up to roughly about 205,000. That comes out of the overtime budget that's built in, guaranteed, that's going to come out before any vacation, sick, whatever. But the way I factored that is basically the troops that are on the 4896, 29, 20 hours per year schedule, that's 264 hours per person that's built into that.
Right. So you got another 1.3 million. You built 200,000 built in, so you got 1.3 million. Because I think you're forecasting 1.5 million. It's excess overtime due to lack of staff. So again, how does this council help you try to fill that void?
In all honesty, I'm still working on that because, I can explain that too, because one of the headaches that we have is with our minimum manning. And so basically they require us to have a minimum of 3 on a regular fire truck, 4 on the big ladder trucks. Technically, NFPA and ISO, the Insurance Service Office, they give the rating grades on fire departments. They actually want 5 on a ladder truck and 4 on an engine. Obviously, we've never been able to afford that type of staffing. But on ours, within the ranks, we need a company officer, somebody qualified to drive it, and a firefighter to help them do all the labor. The biggest problem on our overtime deal is, just like right now is a perfect example. We just put on, I think, 8 recruits out of our last academy. So technically right now we're firefighter heavy, which is the bottom of the pay scale. And the guys that are all leaving are company officers or higher. So when they leave, we take a brand new recruit. Once we get him on shift, or actually from the day we hire him, it's at least 2 years before he's going to be able to balance out some of the driver rank overtime that it costs us. It's at the minimum 4 years to get that same fireman to a company officer's position, to where we're taking a chunk out of that part of the overtime.
Yeah.
That's the biggest headache I'm trying to figure out how to work that into, is the fact that it takes time to get the higher up positions filled, because that's where it eats our overtime up really big.
Historically, how are we at lateral search?
It hasn't really been that popular. And
We've advertised.
we've gotten a couple, but it's just not that popular. We did get 2, I say kids, two brothers from Washington State came and hired on, great guys. They haven't talked to me yet, but the rumor is they're homesick and shopping for fire department jobs to go back home with.
Yeah.
And then one other one who's very young, bless his heart, he's one of our company officers, but he's going to be probably leaving us this summer to go to medical school. And I'm proud of him for stepping up and going to do that, but it sure hurts to lose one more company officer.
When we start talking about 1.3 million overtime, now, is that true cost overtime, or is it filling in, paying a regular staff, where we would normally have a staff person paying them and then the half time on top? Or is it just the total? I mean, because normally if it's filling in because we are vacant, have a vacant spot, we have that salary fixed fee.
I know exactly what you're saying.
And so now if we're saying we're paying 1.3 million overtime, well, 67% of it is actually what we'd be paying a normal staff person. It's the other.
Right. I see what you're saying. And the best way to explain that, the fire department, fire service all over the country is its own monster in that respect. Because like I said, for example, let's just use engine one. It requires a lieutenant, a driver, and a firefighter. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So whatever shift, whatever crew is on that truck today, their salary's all built in. The vacation, sick leave, that sort of stuff is built in, obviously. So if, let's say the driver takes a vacation day to day, his benefit, all that is built in. It's covered. The problem is because there has to be a driver, lieutenant, and a firefighter on that truck, it's automatically, if we don't have the rover to fill that spot, or if the rover's somewhere else, it's automatically time and a half because we have to put somebody in that position on that truck.
Right, but so that 1.3 million is talking about filling in, but if we were 100% staffed, would that be an overtime position? That would be.
If we're 100% fully staffed, we'll just use the lieutenants. If one lieutenant takes vacation, we would technically have one lieutenant, what we call rover, the extra that fills in. So that would cover that lieutenant. But if another lieutenant calls in sick, then we're back into an automatic overtime situation.
Or if you have anybody gone at training or the National Fire Academy or anything like that for weeks at a time, then you are typically in a daily overtime situation, 2 and 3 and 4 people deep every day. And I don't know if you want me to explain any that he mentioned the ISO rating. I don't know if you're familiar with the ISO ratings or not. I can briefly.
I wanted to touch on that some more too.
ISO, the insurance services offices come in and do their inspections every few years of all the fire departments, our building inspection department, our water systems, everything. Our state fire funding is allocated to us based on the ISO rating. We've got down to ISO rating 2. When I was there, we were 3. They've got it down to a 2 now. So there they get increased funding every year from the state fire fund because of that. Working, it is really a training and logging issue on ISO and staffing, obviously, to get to ISO 1. That's our goal, is to be one day at ISO 1 because it affects our business insurances.
Yeah.
It affects everything our community does.
Yeah.
But as they don't just evaluate the fire department when they come in, they spend days at the water department. They call it a divergence between, we've always had points taken away from us because we have such a good water system. We have fire hydrants within 500 feet. They carry 1,000 feet of fire hose. So they actually take points away from us. It is crazy because of how good our water system is in this community, the availability of water. And we're working towards that. Every fire chief for years that's been a goal of ours, is to get to that ISO rating 1 because of the benefits financially to us as a city, but also to our businesses and stuff on their insurance rates.
Yeah, everybody understands that ISO rating has a big bearing on what you pay for your insurance.
Right.
Yeah,
Everyone.
everybody. I mean, well, except those that don't buy insurance.
Well, nobody's asked me yet, but if somebody would, if there was a big wish list, it would be the help with, between the fire department and the water department. Because actually what, like Mike was referring to it, our last ISO score that has us in a rating of a 2 was 82.7 points. A 90 is required to be an ISO 1. So we're right there. I think we can make up the difference because of our lacking in the manning, the amount of people on the truck that they want. What would make up the points difference for us is ISO, and it's ridiculous because it makes it so expensive. But the ISO wants to see every fire hydrant in the municipality flow tested within a 5-year period. And the water department does that. They just don't do it within the 5-year period. That's where we lose the majority of the points on our water system. Because when they come in and they look at our water supply and the pressures, it blows them away. There's very few places that have the water supply that we have. And then jumping from a 2 to a 1, I don't know exactly what the actual dollar amount would be. However, I gotta have it. Yeah. Right now as a 2, ISO 2 rating, the state fire marshal's office bases our fire fund allotment on the rating. So for fiscal year 22, our total allotment was $899,208. This next year, we're actually going to lose $28,000 to $30,000 because Los Alamos went back to a 1 rating. I didn't realize that until they went back to a 1, that they actually take the money that they get out of everybody else's pockets. Albuquerque got hit huge in theirs because
You got one pot of money.
Yep.
So if somebody raises the rate, then everybody else has to pick up the.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mike, what would it take to satisfy Keith's need? Like being tested? That just is an internal, it should be an internal fix.
Right.
Communication and
Years ago, when I was the fire chief, we did that within the department. We weren't running 9,000 calls a year.
right, they don't have the time to go
They don't
test
have
hydrants.
the
and I've looked at that. We could buy the kits. I think the kits are,
Yeah, we put them together. It was nothing back in our day. It would be just having a crew and maybe something that we can do with our valve crew at the water department. They're not only testing valves, but checking hydrants.
How many crew does it take to do the test?
It just takes one guy.
Oh, one guy?
Yeah, one guy, because all you're doing is putting a pitot
Can't
gauge.
do anything this summer.
You got a volunteer right there.
What's required to do that test, you go to the plug, you take the caps off, you raise the caps, and then you flow either the 2.5 or the 4-inch valve water. You waste a lot of water and you have to run a pitot gauge on it and get the pressure of it flowing. So that's the difference. So you run a lot of water down the road for I don't know how many hydrants we have in this town. I used to know.
40, almost 4,900. But we're adding them all like crazy, where the new subdivisions, all that. So there's going to be a considerable amount more.
That would be my thing. We've talked about our valve exercising crew.
Mhm.
To me, just off the top of my head, without discussing anything with the water department or city manager, I would think that would be a place where you could inject a couple people into a program like that.
So
And when they were doing that, they could help in other areas too,
I think it would be beneficial to the whole community and also to the chief to get some more money in his pocket. So I think that should be an item that should be.
And the fire marshal gets calls every week from insurance companies. Somebody buys a house, they file to get insurance. The insurance underwriters will call the fire marshal's office wanting to know ISO ratings. Let's have
I don't
Do
see
they
much
do it?
cost to do that.
So every year, or is it
I think it's 4 years.
every 4 years?
It's when they do it, but I also know that we can request a ISO inspection
At any time.
at just about any
They
time.
come every 4 years automatically unless you request them sooner.
Where are we in that 4-year cycle? When's the last time they were here?
It is coming up.
It's coming up. I want to say If it's not this coming year, it'll be the next, for sure.
I think the last was here, Chief Graham was here, right,
Mhm.
retired, was the last I saw inspecting. He's been gone.
I remember doing it, but I don't remember which year it was.
Sounds like maybe this is attainable if we're gonna work on it. So let's figure out, let's get a plan, let's get, so we can steal from everybody else in the state.
Heck, yeah, sounds good to me.
Then, like you said, every business and every homeowner that pays fire insurance, it saves them money.
Yes, it
Yeah,
does.
it does.
Go from a 2. I mean, to be a 2 is awesome,
Oh, I agree.
but to be a 1, I mean, at one time, I was told there was 50 but
Oh, nationwide, I don't know.
within the,
Within the state of New Mexico, Albuquerque, Las Cruces, Los Alamos, and I grabbed my list to see, I don't remember what Santa Fe is. Santa Fe is also one.
before.
No, wait, I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong line. Let me make sure that's correct. No, Santa Fe's a 2. I'm sorry, there are 2.
There's 3. So 54.
I'm all for
It was hiring, it was hiring, so there's so many people that want to go to work.
Well, okay, so I'm gonna jump in unless, Councilor Perry, you got any? Okay, so, couple of things. How are you coming on the rehab at the fire station out there, Air Center? Is it,
I wanted to talk about that too. It's right there. They're getting close. They're, the painters were working on it. I referred to it as got into it with him, he didn't get into it, but I told him, keep hurrying. The general contractor had his painter stop because he threw a fit. He didn't like some of the sheetrock that the sheetrockers had done. So he's making the sheetrockers fix that before they actually finish the painting. So it's just those little headaches like that, but it is moving, thank goodness. They're right there close to having it done. The ductwork is all ready to go. We will still be waiting on the HVAC units themselves because the back order was like 16 to 18 weeks back when we ordered them, which back then put it towards the first part of July. So at this point, we're almost there.
always problems you can't control?
That's been the frustration.
Well, I don't, my time as a public servant, not only at the state, but the county and now the city, when you've got these 24/7 organizations, you just can't seem to figure out a way to get that overtime down because you got training requirements. You can't have a guy that's classified as firefighter hop in and drive the truck. Can I drive the truck? Yeah. Can I do the job? No. I get it from point A to point B and I'll throw the keys to somebody knows what to do.
Yep.
The other thing that's interesting during my tenure as a judge is these firefighters count blocks. They leave the fire station, they know how many blocks they go north or south or east or west. And it was funny, it was an arson case and the defense attorney says, well, how far did you travel? He said, I don't know, it was 7 blocks this way and 15 the other. And the defense attorney kind of took that and said, well, how far is that? He said, I don't know. I count blocks and which way I'm going. That's what I do. And that was the driver on the truck to the fire. So it's, there's lots of skills that don't meet the eye that these ladies and gentlemen have to be trained on. And I appreciate the work you guys do. Other than that, trying to get that fire station up out there at the Air Center. Do you have any other fire stations that are in need of some?
I don't think there's any major stuff, there's some little stuff roof wise, but knock on wood, our roof issues have just been little patch jobs that are still warranty work. They're coming and fixing because they've been repaired.
Okay.
I don't really, off the top of my head, know of anything, especially major.
Okay.
There's some minor upkeep, the buildings are all aging, so there's little stuff, but I don't know of anything big and hopefully we don't run into anymore.
Okay. All right. Chief, back to you real quick. The fire chief gave us a list of his personnel and their responsibilities in his packet. When you get a chance, would you fire a copy of that off?
On my up-to-date organizational chart.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's just for curiosity.
Absolutely.
I don't know how many you got in traffic or how many detectives you got anymore. I used to know that stuff, believe it or not, but
Yeah, we have that. We update it as actually we're going through accreditation. So we've updated everything to stay with that. But yeah, I can get that to the whole board.
yeah, I think something needs to be shared with everybody. Okay, anything else? Okay,
Matt,
then,
would you switch chairs with Terry?
Absolutely.
okay, now we're gonna talk about dispatch.
Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Oh, thank you.
She brought a book with her.
I don't need it. I don't want to scare you. I don't need
No, that's right. I just noticed all these binders sitting around.
Mine is small. So like my colleagues, my needs are complicated, but my needs are simple. Pecos Valley Regional Communication Center is the official name for the Department of Consolidated Dispatch. We are the 911 center and dispatch center for all of Chaves County. That includes 5 law enforcement agencies, 12 career and volunteer departments, and 3 EMS services. The only law enforcement agencies that we do not serve dispatch services for are the NIMI Police and New Mexico State Police, but we do provide them information when they're out on the street making calls. So we have presently we have 24 positions that were approved, 21 positions that were approved for. We suspended 4 when COVID hit to help kind of offset what we expected to be a financial crisis coming. For the new fiscal year, we are asking for 2 to be added to support a program I'm going to tell you about. And I believe that is going to happen. So in the coming year, should have 6 positions to add, not counting any turnover that might happen. On our personnel budget, you're going to see some adjustments there that might be a red flag. In our fiscal year 2022 budget, they did not figure us something for that. We're mission critical. So just like the fire department and the police department, whenever we have someone out or in training, we have to fill that position. So we were able to look good this year because myself and my other salaried workers filled positions on the floor to keep that overtime down. But that, of course, hurt a little bit in administrative functions. And we also were able to borrow some money from operating to take care of that because we got a grant from the state to cover something. So we played around a little bit. We're going to look okay this year, but we won't have that opportunity next year. So you're going to see a little bit different in the personnel budget. So to tell you a little bit about us, we are covered by a JPA under the county and the city. They support us 60-40. The city covers 60 and the county covers 40, and they cover 50-50 with our equipment. We are city employees and we are currently housed in the county administration building. We are doing, our volume right now is right about 35,000 911 calls a year. We're handling about 90,000 admin calls. So we're averaging about 125,000 calls per year total. We also are the warrant custodians for the entirety of Chaves County right now, to include New Mexico State Police. We're getting ready to give those back. But as of right now, we're holding about 4,500 warrants. So anytime an officer serves a warrant or whatever, we have to handle all of that paperwork and things like that. We also, for every warrant we hold, for every missing person or stolen article, we have to do an annual validation on those to ensure that the information for the responsible party is still accurate, that the object or person is still missing. So that's a lot of administrative work. So that kind of sums up what we do clerically. In addition to the admin calls that we handle For our own operation, we are the rollover for Roswell Police Department's front desk. So anytime they're busy or after hours, the calls roll over to us for that. And we're also the after hours answering point for various city and county departments, central control, things of that sort. And we notify them after hours as well. So we do a good bit, but we do it with pride. So we're doing pretty good. Another thing you'll notice in my operating budget, that our needs for this year are really just shifting. There's not a lot of increase. The increase that you see that I've requested is really kind of that overtime that we handled this year. I've got a handout for you. In the back is kind of where the money's moving around and why. And on the top, it's going to explain the benefits of the program that I was going to tell you about. It's the structured call taking and quality assurance program. But in addition to the structured call taking and quality assurance program benefits, it's going to explain the risk and liability of not having one of those programs. So I thought you might find that interesting. And then the back page is just showing you a little bit of how the money is being shifted around for our requests for 2023. So up to this year, Pecos Valley didn't have a structured call taking protocol. We didn't have a tiered response for our responders to optimize our resources. There was no certification process for the dispatchers other than the rudimentary telecommunications training with the state. We do have to be certified with the New Mexico Law Enforcement Academy, similar to the police department. It's not as intense, but we are certified through them. But that just gives you the basics of telecommunications and how to handle the crime databases. It doesn't really teach you what you need to serve the community in the way that we want to. So as of March of this year, we began the program that we started to implement last year. So as of September of this year, all of our communicators are going to be certified and professionally trained as emergency medical, emergency police, and emergency fire dispatchers. So what that means is that we are actually certified in this process and licensed, and they are professionally trained. So that's something that we've never been able to offer them before. We're also supporting RPD in their quest for CALEA and Roswell Fire with their ISO rating because there's a specific section for communications. So we're working with them on that. But in addition to that, we're also going to be seeking the accreditation as a center of excellence for the International Academy of Emergency Dispatch. So what that's going to do is that's specific to us, and it measures us against a standard worldwide. And it'll show that we are performing at or above the level of communication centers across the entire world. So we're very excited about that. So most of the shifts in our funding are to account to support this new program that we've put in to heighten our service to the community and the elevation of our professionals and our investment in them. It's really our funds go into software and our people. That's where our money is spent. We don't have huge needs where it comes to equipment because we are on a cycle with the state. Every 5 to 7 years, we are open for capital grant funding with them. We just finished our cycle, and if you've been to the center, we got new furniture, we got a new E911 call system. So we're right about 3 years from our next capital run with them. We are supported by them with grants each year for training, equipment, and some operational costs. Financially, we receive funds of usually right about $12,000, but they direct pay quite a bit of services for SGIS, voice activated language lines and things of that sort. So that's really where we are personnel and operationally. On the capital side, that unfortunately is not supported by the state at this time. We have a project on the ICIP request list for radio consoles for dispatch. Recently, in the past years, we worked on the infrastructure for the radio system for the county. Unfortunately, what improving their infrastructure for the county has done is drawn attention to the fact that the actual radio equipment in dispatch is not as good as it needs to be. So it is approaching end of life, and we have some significant issues that can be considered officer safety that we're battling right now. So that we're trying to get that project pushed forward so that we can get updated radio consoles and mitigate those problems. We are also supportive of the records management system that Chief spoke about earlier, because that's part of us. We have a computer-aided dispatch system that ties into that. So that will affect us and help us tremendously. It would be beneficial if the entire county had that same system, and there has been discussion at the county level that they want to be part of this, but I believe that they committed to something else without discussion. So they may not be able to buy in immediately, but they want to do that in the future, and they being the sheriff's department. That's really all I have. I talked a lot, I'm sorry, and I didn't lose my voice, so I did good. And I stand for any questions.
So, any questions?
No, I just looking at your differences, look like you got software issues or costs that are those new, or they're just.
So what we have, so you'll see the shift. Last year, it was the implementation of these programs, and they're shifting to the support of this program.
So that's why you got a decrease in your quality assurance.
Yes, because it was an implementation of the program, so I have to move it to a different account
Yeah.
to cover the.
It's make you do that all.
It's all about the account number. I just have to move it to a different account.
Right.
Well, that was one of my questions.
And I guess the equipment thing your request you're talking about, when will we see that monetary?
It's about 460,000, isn't it, for the entire program?
Yeah.
We're going to work as a team and try and get some grant funding for it. That's how we're going to attack it.
Okay.
We had a salesperson come over and he went in the ins and outs. And of course, we want to know the bottom line, because I was sure like that isn't going to cost, a freebie or work it off. But anyways, I said, currently, we're not budgeted for that. I said, so this is going to be we're going to have to augment by going through some grant funding, and he's giving us some direction on what sources for that.
Yes, he's helping.
The interest is there. I said, the interest is there. I go, I can pull the trigger on this in a minute, as long as I have the funding for it. My records supervisor loves it. Dispatch loves it. I looked at what it had for capabilities. I already told you what I really homed in on is the fact that we can interlock with the businesses and turn their cameras into our cameras. I just think that's, what does Hobbs pay? Over how many million does Hobbs pay for the Eagle Eye? And there's software out there now that they went out and spent a lot of money. There's software out there now. Motorola possesses it, so I'd imagine Axon has it, and Central Square said they have it, where you can tap into closed caption TV for the businesses. That's the way to go.
And to piggyback off of what Chief said, Central Square is the vendor. So what we're looking at is actually the vendor we currently have. So we've got an established relationship, and it's an improvement on what we already have. So a lot of those normal problems you have vetting out things are not going to be there if we are able to do
Eliminate
this.
some repetition.
Yes.
So we should see
Training issues are.
this year, maybe.
I'd love to. That's what
Depends on the money.
that is something that it's going to make an expanse of our people who work in the city very happy.
Yeah.
So it's going to hit everyone who has to deal with the computers, which is all of us.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions? Yes.
I just wanted confirmation. When you said that the CCSO did not communicate with you on what they purchased to coincide and make this a whole unit, so now they're behind and they don't have.
No, they're not necessarily behind. The systems do not talk now. So they weren't designed to work together. And I think that's probably been since before we were a consolidated center, because we serve the departments. So we dispatch for them. So I think that they had a separate system. The deputy chief, they've had a separate system. They've always had a separate system. And they just upgraded what they had instead of realizing that we might have been ready to do that as well, and us having a conversation.
So they didn't.
So it wasn't their responsibility to talk to me. Yeah, it wasn't their responsibility to speak with me. I think I work a little bit closer with Roswell Police Department, but that's just.
And thinking since it's such a team effort and everybody throws money into the pot, everybody should communicate, but that's.
I think that's their intention going forward. That I just don't think we've realized this was the direction everybody wanted to head.
If I may, there's one other benefit to this particular system is it kind of links us together. So if dispatch is in there typing out some Bandito that we have in Roswell, she doesn't have to do a separate screen to do the CCSO and see if they've had activity with them. They can go bang and she's got them both, which is another benefit of having a system. We can cross over, but we still have the privacy of, our own cases and stuff. Some cases can't be divulged, but finding that bad cat and seeing if he's been in this county as well as the city, it's going to be much easier for dispatch.
If we go this direction, each agency can determine what they want to share and what they want to keep separated. So it's designed for agency cooperation.
Well, the stuff you had then have where the state police and the state police and the city police and the sheriff kind of talk to each other and stuff.
I don't believe it will because the state police has a different system. We did ask the salesperson if there was an integration, and he's checking on that. There may be a link that links them together, but not the same system.
The state has a tendency to go their own route, not in a negative way. They just do it. They get their own vendors, do what they want. We had an issue when we went to the P25 radio system. We had to change, or they had to change the inner programming of the radios because we couldn't link up with them. The idea of P25 is to link with all the other surrounding agencies. And we had to reprogram ours to adapt to theirs. We couldn't just walk into them. So that was one of the issues. They just have a tendency, they go their own route and they get, they're very attractive to vendors because of the size that they are. So.
You stated that right now we don't communicate, but we're not tied in with NIMI and state police. Are we with Eastern's, the college, with their
police department?
Police department?
No, I'm sorry. I forgot about them as well.
On the reporting system, but they are on our radios.
Yeah, all of them are we're able to communicate radio wise. And even if we don't have someone that's on our system, we have the mutual aid channels, the federal mutual aid channels. So we can talk to everyone, but the actual information systems don't communicate. We don't dispatch for those agencies. We run things for them, for instance, with NIMI, if they need a plate runner, that holds their ORI so that we can run them in databases. Same with state police, but we don't actually dispatch them to calls.
Well, I'm kind of curious, back when we had 9/11 and they had their deal, one of the problems was different departments being able to communicate with each other. And it looked like we spent millions of dollars in state.
Absolutely.
And got everybody integrated. And now we're having a segregation going on with the state police. I don't understand.
Well, we can communicate with them. The local officers actually carry one of our portables.
Right, they have one of our radios.
They have one of our radios, so we provide that for them. So we do everything we can on the local level to make sure something like that doesn't happen. And I actually have portables in my office that if something were to happen, I can issue.
Right.
If something happens. So we've got an analog way of doing that right now until something
It's not fancy.
Okay.
better comes along.
Do you do computer generated call outs or is it all done over the air?
We have the ability to do both. We do radio tone outs for all the departments. And we also have the mobile data terminals. So not only does the call from the CAD, the computer aided dispatch, go across to them, everything from the structured call taking process goes through that, and they get all of that information as well.
You guys got computers in your cars? Yeah.
Yes.
You have them in the truck?
We don't have that opportunity for services, so we deliver that to them verbally. And our smaller municipalities just got the ability. Dexter just added mobile data terminals, and the sheriff's department does have it. Now they have access to our CAD. It's not the information system. So The CAT is.
All right, got it. So I know the county's working on a new home for you all. I went and looked at it. It looks nice to me, but I don't have to live there. So where are we on that? Is that?
I haven't been invited to that tour yet to see what they've done.
Well, I wasn't invited. I just walked down there because I went by there to vote. I just went on down the hall and looked.
I haven't done that.
I'm not quite sure, Mr. Chair. The area is not what I understood it to be from the beginning. The bathrooms are not where I thought they were going to be. So I haven't been able to get a firm grasp of what the area actually is, square footage. We just had one meeting with the architect. So we're in the very, very beginning stages. I've just not gotten a firm grasp of exactly what they're proposing. So I'm sorry, I can't quite answer that question.
All right. Mr. Mayor, thank you for joining us.
By the time they put the bathrooms in there, there was only 1,400 square feet.
That's, the area that I've been shown, the architect said was 1,442 square feet, that one room. And then when we were touring it with the architect, they said they might be able to add a couple of offices in the election place for Karen and myself. But the actual area of the dispatch floor, the architect told me was only 1,442. And I'm not sure if there's area outside of that. My impression was in the beginning, it was that whole section, but that's not what I'm being shown now. So I just haven't been able to quite get a grasp of what the actual project is. But Mike's going to help me and we're going to work on that.
So how much do you need? How much space do you need to be there and grow?
I think the architects are working on that because there's a certain amount of optimal space you need for each working position. And what we requested, we have 9 positions now, and we want to have the opportunity to grow to 12. And then we have, we need office space for our administration because there's a lot of confidential things that need to be handled. We also need a training area. We don't have a training area right now, so that we can put people through real life scenario things. So we do need a good bit of space. And if you've been where we are, I want to say we've got about 1,400 feet where we are.
So can you tell the architect what you need so he can work to your specs because you are the boss? You're running.
I'm the boss of the comm center. The architects have experience in building comm centers. That's one of the reasons why I was encouraged with this particular architectural firm. And like I said, there are industry standards on what the appropriate area is for these type of workstations due to the heat of the equipment and the workspace for them. So I've given them the dimensions of our workspaces, and they're going to use the APCO and NEMA standards to present this proposal. And I'm not sure that they'll be able to do it.
And I'm sorry, I kind of took over the floor. I'm thinking, of course, being public safety chair for so long, I just automatically ask these questions. So can you project in how long you've been here and dealing with COVID and all that? Can you project how many operators you're going to need so they can build to that space? I think I already asked you that, just in a different way.
Well, we have 9 positions. We don't have that many on every day or at the same time. So we usually have 7 people on the floor during our peak. So they'll have to take consideration for social distance for 7 at the very minimum. But like I said, I'm
Do they share equipment?
Shift to shift, but we have 1 per station.
Thank you. Sorry, Bob. Didn't mean to.
That's all right.
Thank you.
Well, the walls are up.
Yes. And like I said, I may have a misunderstanding of what's going on down there, but I haven't been able to get.
Well, who's the city representative on that dispatch committee or whatever you all call it?
Terry was the only one that was included in the, and Karen.
Karen.
With the architect.
But the actual, it's just hard to explain.
I'm not talking about that. There's a board made up.
PBRCC board?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm on that board.
I'm on the board, Phil.
She's on the board.
I don't believe it's come through the board, sir.
Yeah,
It's not. It has not come through the board at all.
Project.
County project. This is, it's absolute county.
You guys are going your own way.
Yeah, well, I noticed that they've got one new door, exterior door. They don't have one in your all's area cut yet. I'm told that you all going to take over that fenced-in parking lot for your employees.
My understanding is that the communications project has not begun, other than the architect being hired. That the project that is going on now was the county project in preparation for the communications project. But I may not have a good understanding because I have not been part of those meetings.
Well, I haven't gone to any of them, so I just walked around in there and it looked nice, but
It is, it does look nice. It's just, I'm concerned that I'm either not understanding the area they intend to give us, or it's not big enough.
well, I know bathrooms when you're
The
going,
bathrooms are huge, but those are the public bathrooms, sir.
well, the bathrooms sometimes get moved because that's where you can make the connection.
Right, and that may be what happened. I said, I don't want to speak out of turn. I'm not sure I understand what's going on down there.
Well, I'll do some inquiry.
Thank you.
But you're not unhappy, you just don't know.
Exactly.
Communication is such an easy thing to do and it's so hard to get done sometimes. And that's the business you're in.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right. Oh, we got
Can I ask a question? I missed the beginning. Where do you stand on getting the academy here approved by the state?
I met with them on June 2nd at the normally scheduled New Mexico Law Enforcement Academy Board. And board instructed the director to facilitate the city of Roswell in whatever we needed to get this academy up and running.
I expect it before the end of the calendar year.
Well, I've been in contact with the director since, saying what exact steps should we be taking? This is an accreditation process too. They're going to have to come down and audit us to see what we have. So that there's no sense in having an academy if the officers coming out of it aren't going to be accredited or lined up with the state standards. But anyways, as soon as possible is the answer to that.
And so it's like additional budget money?
No, we've been planning this for over a year. And the actual running of the academy is built right into our support services and our current operational budget. We have the personnel, we have the trainers, and we have the facilities already all lined up.
Okay, anything else? All right, thank you. Appreciate it. I hope somebody's able to get a handle on whatever communication needs to be done. I understand part of that breakdown. And it's nobody sitting in here's fault. Just tell you, I know some stuff. Anything else? Okay. Thank you. Appreciate you. Emergency management.
All
Here we
right.
go.
This is going to be long. This is where all the money is going, folks.
That's not what I heard. We spent a lot of
I know. Yes, so I support a lot of these agencies, so you'll hear a lot of repetitive comments. So I'm the emergency manager for all of Chaves County, so that's 5 jurisdictions. I have myself, I'm the full-time emergency manager, and then I share, as Matt Miller mentioned, emergency management specialist. So that budget is half out of his and half out of mine. The majority of my budget stays flat. We never have really any increases, and the major cost, of course, is personnel. But I'm able to get that back through a grant through the state called EMPG, and that reimburses 50% of my salary and benefits and 25% of the part-time person. So the part-time person we just added last year, and I was able to write a grant and also get her percentage. So that pays 75% of salary and benefits for emergency management. And then Chaves County also reimburses, since I work for them, 25% of my salary, 25% of my benefits, and 25% of my operating expenses. The city pays the 75% because I'm housed in a city building out of Fire Station 3. That's where our emergency operations center is. So I use more city things, but as we look at developing in this area D, that they're going to move, they're talking about putting an emergency management office there. So since I'm at both locations, I could have a computer, and we're just trying to figure out the logistics of how that would work. But really the majority of my my actual budget is personnel. Very little of it is operating. The main money that I get and the revenue that I get back is when we have disaster. So like right now we have, I have $1.53 million out in grants, getting reimbursements for recovery costs. So the majority of that was from our 2021 floods for the city and the county. That was, $900,000. Then the EMPG grant, and then another grant that I have with the Department of Health. We just actually finished and got back the last of our money from the Dexter tornado in 2019. It's kind of a slow process to get that reimbursement, but I gave you just some examples of my budget. It's really, like I said, there's not much money. Most of it's personnel, and I get most of that reimbursed. And then just a general, the last page is the grants that this have come out of this department over the last few years. So a little over $4 million in grants that we get back. And so normally when I come to this committee, I'm usually asking for match money. So let's say I'm looking, so I work with PD and fire, and Terry's wanting dispatch consoles, and Chief Smith's wanting a command post, and he's wanting hazmat training. So usually if I can get a grant for that, if it's not 100% and it requires a match, then I'm back in front of this board saying, hey, I can get this $500,000 command post if we pay 25% of it. So it has to come out of my budget because it's through emergency management. So then I'm trying to get, because it's all reimbursable. It's not upfront money. So then I'm back in front of this board saying, hey, would you authorize this grant if we can come up with the 25% of the $500,000? So that's sort of how it works. But I do a lot of work with the huge partnerships with everybody. With SO, we'll put sirens down in Dexter, Hagerman, Lake Arthur's wanting a siren. So little projects everywhere. Most of my grants are specifically Homeland Security grants, so they can only be used for first responders and public safety. Sometimes it's equipment. I mean, you can't go buy snow plows with my grant money, but you can buy the communication towers. That was a big grant, $1.3 million. All the mobiles, portables, radios. With Terry talked about upgrading the communication system. Those grants came out of emergency management. The tech rescue trailer that we're going to type a team, that tech rescue trailer was $500,000. That was a grant that I wrote. It came from emergency management. So I rely on them to let me know what they need equipment wise, and then I try to help find the grants for that throughout Travis County. So with that, any questions?
Gentlemen?
Sorry. I'm trying to be fast. I'm 2 minutes over. He's trying to leave at 11:45.
Yeah.
So I said, I'll be fast. I'll be
I
fast.
got one thing to say. Let her find you some more money. This woman finds all kinds of money.
Honor like a tick.
I've got requests from everybody in here recently, right?
She's the master. You are the master of finding money.
Yes. It's a lot of work, but it's rarely for me. It's usually for our community as a whole. But
Karen, where are we on the emergency operation plan? Didn't we go out for a grant to rewrite it?
No. I got it in capital. So I have 50,000 in capital outlay money. Right. So we finished our mitigation plan, and I did find a grant for that. So that was a 75-25 match. We're completely done with that project. Now we have an emergency operations plan, and I have 50,000 in capital outlay. So we need to write a scope of work, and I don't know if 50,000 will cover it. So I'll probably write a grant for an additional like 25,000. So I would have that as a backup. But I have the 50,000 in capital outlay.
Because one of the things statutorily that we're responsible for, we don't have to know the plan, we just have to know that there is.
Right, yes, and there is one.
By statute, we have to know that there is.
Right.
Perry, you got any questions?
No, I'm fine in the peanut gallery.
Are they roasted or salted?
I just don't want to waste anybody's time, so we're good.
Good.
All right, so you write your own grant,
I do.
and then you keep track of all those grants on your.
Right. That's why I need some help. Because like with this flooding, that's a lot of paperwork to get that's a lot of money to get back. We've got to document timesheets and raise and a lot of paperwork.
Aren't you glad you're not in San Miguel tomorrow?
I really am grateful that we don't have wildfires.
Yeah. For those poor people over in the Gila.
Oh, yeah.
And you coordinate and help the fire, the police, dispatch,
Not
all
yet.
that stuff.
Yes.
So you're kind of the point person on most of this grant stuff.
She has access to the big money. She has access to the big money.
Well, that's why we work to type a team with the PD, because that just opens a different pot of money. When we are able to have a type team, the fire department's they're going to type a couple of different teams, a hazmat team and a type rescue team. They're just working on getting the training. So that opens up different pots of money. So we work really hard with the training to give us the best opportunities to apply for those grants.
You know, one thing, our firemen really should be trained in red cards and stuff so they can go up and help them and read those. I mean, just to trade out to help people, because those guys were really, maybe it only happens every 10 years. So.
We did send crews up there, but they covered the structural side inside the city limits, which should allow them to send out their red cards that we have.
Well, I mean, I don't know whether we should.
And they specifically asked for us to cover their structural city calls.
Yeah, I understand that, but you also can't do the other, but when it's a disaster like that, I mean, everybody should try to help everybody, so if you can cross train, it wouldn't hurt. I mean, if it's just, you can't even drive a tanker truck up there, you don't have a red card, so. I mean, you can send tankers or whatever you send, I mean, just scratch up for tankers or whatever, you gotta have a red card.
All it takes is training. Okay, anything else for the good of the order? Okay.
Thanks to everybody.
Any comments from you all? We got 2 people, maybe for 4 we need to go to public comments.
Thank you all for getting out here.
See you later.
I'm glad you all talked it all out. We heard all night tonight.
We didn't broach any of that stuff. That's for tonight. My little brain just lets me categorize certain times. So anybody on the phone or on their computer wish to make any comments before I lose my quorum? Guess not. Okay. So thank you all. Councilman Bass, you got any last words?
No, sir. Thank you for letting me participate.
You're more than welcome. All right, and we're adjourned. See you all next time. I'll let you know what we're going to do when I get it figured out. Well, that's not my purview.